In this video, we're going to take a look at the basics of setting up multiplayer for Command PE. Command PE comes in two different pieces as far as multiplayer is concerned. The first is going to be the dedicated server required to actually run the scenario, and then there's going to be the actual client side, which will enable us to actually connect to the dedicated server for the purposes of playing the scenario. For today, we're going to concentrate on just the setup as well as the different options. To get to the setup, we're simply going to come down to Command Dedicated Server and double-click it inside of our main install folder. That's going to bring you to this interface here. The way this works is pretty straightforward. The first item you're going to do is select the port number that your command is going to run in. This can be very helpful if you want to run more than one scenario on one computer. You can use different port numbers and have different people connect to it. Underneath that is the option to use Universal Plug and Play. This simply says if you intend to use some sort of external connection, like an internet connection, you can set this to true and it will use UPnP if that is available on your router. Underneath here, we have the set rules. The first one is going to be the minimum number of players that we must do in order to start the scenario. Keep in mind, once this number of players is reached, it will instantly start the particular scenario. Underneath that is requiring the umpire. The umpire is simply an extra player who has the ability to add units, move units, change units, and see the result of things real time that the players will not be given access to. This is a very, very powerful feature and it works very, very well in especially moderated scenarios. You do not require this setting. However, if you do enable this umpire will have to be present before the scenario will start. The next item is to go ahead and allow a scenario time limit. The purpose of this is basically to say, once we get to the end of the scenario, please end the scenario. Otherwise, you can keep going past the end time on the given scenario. This is a fairly useful feature as well. Down here, things get a little bit more complicated. Under recorder interval, this simply says how often the user should be presented with a short clip of what is going on with the action. So basically, if you want to think about it another way, we take our turn, let's say it's a 3-minute turn, and we set this to 60 seconds. That means when the player finishes their turn, they will get 3 60-second clips, which will show you exactly what happened during the execution of the turn. Under here, you have the replay snapshot interval. This is simply going to dictate if the replay snapshot is even activated. One thing worth noting on this one is that the bigger this number becomes, obviously, of course, the snapshot itself is going to grow a little larger. The recorder interval, by the way, you want to be careful with this one because if you set the value too low, you end up showing a lot of teeny little pieces of the scenario. And if you have like a 10-minute turn, this could be a spectacular amount of data on your network as well as on your computer. Below here, you have the basic systems for the actual game itself. The first one is going to be order submitting time. If you want to think about playing a speed chess, this is going to be how long the player has to execute all their orders and then submit it. Should the player go beyond this amount of time, it will automatically commit their turn directly. Underneath here, we have the variable turn time, which will dictate how long each turn actually is. So this is how long the player has to activate the turn, and this is how long the user's turn is as far as in the real world scenario. Keep in mind, as you make this value significantly smaller, the user will have more control over the units. However, it will significantly increase gameplay time as you're trying to work your way through it. Once you've selected the options you want, simply click the next scenario to start, make your way to the file that you wish to run, and then this scenario will fire up. Now keep in mind this server will just be sitting here listening until somebody actually connects to the server itself. I will take a look at that in a moment. Now on the user side of things, if we want to take a look at what this will look like, we now have a join multiplayer game option. I'm simply going to press that button, type in my username, now connect to the server that we have. Once this is done, it will give us the ability to select the different options we're interested in. Since our server is already running, we are able to join into this right away. First thing you'll have is a global chat, which you can then use to communicate to the other players or the specific game master that you're working with. Down here, you can have any sort of rules. In this particular case, we have what turn we're on, we have the different players. In this case, I haven't declared one. We also have down here the order submitting time, as well as the variable turn time that we had set previously. If I would like to go ahead and join the scenario, I simply select the side I wish to join and press the Join Team option. As soon as I press this button, it's going to go ahead and collect the information, send me the scenario, notify me of anything going on in the scenario, and then I have the option to press the Begin Scenario button. I can now take the multiplayer and remove it, and now I'm ready to actually execute my multiplayer turns. I can now do anything that I can do in the normal pace, but as you notice up at the top, we have a brand new button that says First Turn. This is simply telling you how much time you have in your turn. Turns and committing them will be covered in a later video.